You are listening to SEC After Dark with Stephen Willis, Corey Burton, and Jeb Beecham. All right, welcome to the inaugural episode of SEC After Dark. I am Stephen Willis, along with Corey Burton. We're going to have a little fun talking SEC football over the next hour or so. I see that. What you got? A Sam Adams Summerall? I'm completely on brand with my Land Shark beer.
You would be. Palmcast special.
Yes. And I got bottle caps behind me on my shelf. People don't even know this, but every time I drink a beer on the air, I can only do it when I drink it on the air. I put the lid over there on the shelf. I think we're up to 6 or 7 at this point.
Do you flick it behind you?
No, that would get messy in a hurry. I just set it on the top shelf. It's right next to the Lane Kiffin bobblehead.
Attaboy.
Yeah. So, you can catch us on Twitter at the Stephen Willis and at the Rebel Watch. You can catch us on Facebook, facebook.com/Palmcast, facebook.com/The Rebel Walk. You can catch us on YouTube at positivelyolemiss. Hit the bell, subscribe. That way you'll not only know that we're streaming, you'll know what we're streaming about. And we're on Twitch at positivelyolemiss. Now, also, Corey is going to share it to his platforms. Where are you going to share it to?
Well, I'm going to share to my personal Facebook, Corey Burton. I'm going to share to my Believe in Georgia Dogs YouTube channel. I do have a Believe in Georgia Dogs Twitch account. Still trying to figure that out, but I have one. So give me a follow, give me a subscribe to it. Check out my stream. Israel and I are back in action this Thursday. We're going to start our opponent previews. We're going to kick it off with the Kentucky Wildcats. Looks like with Vinny Hardy. We're going to do that over on Brinks TV. Check us out on all social media platforms at Believe in Dogs. Of course, my personal one is up there at Coach Burton 36. And we will stream that through that Twitter account as well. I'll probably share all that through Palmcast early on, but you can catch me over on the Believe Network on Believe in Georgia Dogs. And of course, there's another show that's going to be simulcast right here and on Believe. It's going to be, I don't know if you want to give out the name, Steve, or I don't know if you want to give away the dirty secrets.
Yeah, it's the Beast of the East podcast. Right.
The Beast of the East is going to feature me and Craig Ladd. It was formerly known as Coaching Chatter, but we rebranded, wanted to take a really good focus on the SEC, the Southeastern Conference Eastern Division, because he's a Tennessee guy, I'm a Georgia guy, and most of my contacts are SEC East contacts, so why not, right?
Right. And we're also working to find people to host the Best of the West show on this channel. And they're probably, I think right now we're looking at somebody from Alabama and somebody from Arkansas potentially, but it will not be me. And it'll be right here on this channel as well. So we'll have SEC After Dark, Beast of the East, and Best of the West right here on the Positively Ole Miss channels and simulcast over on the Believe YouTube page and things like that.
Oh man, it's exciting stuff, man. We're getting wall to wall SEC coverage, and it's right on brand for the fan, by the fan. I love it. I've got a slight other perspective beyond just a normal rabid college football fan. I am a high school football coach, so I mix that perspective into my fandom. Sometimes I wear my fan hat, and I don't put on my coaching hat when I watch the game because sometimes I like to just turn my brain off. But that's the perspective I bring. So, my Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast is the same way. Israel's a former player, and he's also a high school coach, so we kind of mesh our two perspectives. But we are purely analytical. We're not journalists. We're not news breaking. We're not going to give you live coverage of the press conference and breaking stories. We're going to react to all of that stuff. And you're going to get our perspective. So that's how we roll. And Steve, I guess that's how we roll here on SEC After Dark.
Yes, absolutely. And you can count on the fact, I believe you and I are two of the only people that are hosting a podcast together that have ever worked inside of college football program.
Yeah. We've been actual staffers. Now, there's a lot of people on the Believe Network that were former players, but our unique perspective, you were a video guy, and I was a recruiting guy. And so I was a recruiting assistant as a student. Back in the days before all this, I wish I was a recruiting assistant now because the job is so much cooler because you're doing like graphic design and short videos and stuff like that. Me, I was just stuffing envelopes and taking names at camps and running the apparel store where I was giving out T-shirts and selling cleats at the football camps. I was stuffing and alphabetizing questionnaires and sorting out recruiting tapes and determining, of the random submissions, who was worthy of being actually looked at and who was worthy of the circular file.
Yeah, and funny enough, like me being the video coordinator, I actually had an office in the Manning Center on there. But back then was when Pete Boone was in charge of the athletic department, and we actually had to do things like inventory the total number of tapes that we had in the building and things like that because money was notoriously tight at that point.
Oh yeah,
and that was before this big boom because back then Ole Miss's total athletic budget was somewhere in the 25 to 30 range million. 25 to 30 million dollars. Now it's somewhere around 110 million, and that is in 14 years or so.
That's not bad. It's not a bad jump.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Well, we're going to talk all about SEC. We got all these new shows coming out. We're going to do a lot of great stuff on the channel. We do want to talk about a little bit about the SEC, a little bit about the surprise teams in the league, and that doesn't necessarily mean winners, and teams to watch. When I say surprise teams, it could be surprise in the other direction as well. And we'll just start off going around the SEC, which was the previous brand of this show, and just for general thoughts, like the one thing that I have, and I keep coming back to it over and over and over again, there's two things at the top of the league that people need to keep an eye on. One, will Kirby take his thumb off the offense at Georgia? And two, will Alabama have a slow start since they have to replace everybody, including an offensive coordinator?
To answer your first question, yes. I think there's about 470 million clues to let you know that he's going to take his thumb off because he is stubborn, but he's not stupid, right? He understands. He's seen it 2 years in a row now. So his unwillingness to be stupid, his stubbornness against being stupid is taking over. Todd Monken, he hired him for a reason. COVID was a weird year last year, but you have everything in place. You got all these transfers. That stuff don't happen for no reason. So, to me, it's full go.
Well, looking at Georgia, convince me that when I see Eric Gilbert and the tight end that was there last year, that we're not going to see a bunch of 12 personnel out there.
Well, Eric Gilbert is an ex-receiver. That's what they recruited him as, and so you're going to see a lot of 12 personnel with Eric Gilbert lined up in the slot or out wide because he's an athlete and they're branding him like the next Kyle Pitts, and I don't know how true that is. He had an okay year at LSU, but LSU was kind of a mess, so it was hard to really gauge. But yes, you're going to see a lot of those two on the field at the same time, and that's Darnell Washington is the other guy.
Yeah, out of Las Vegas. A really great prospect at tight end in his own right. The little slot receiver, I believe his last name was Burton.
Yeah, my cousin, Jermaine.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be like the breakout star.
Yeah, what is the recruitment of Eric Burton due to a slot receiver? You have to figure they're going to occupy the same territory. They're not going to play him on the outside.
They might. Oh, they're going to move Jermaine Burton all around. Jermaine Burton can play everywhere. Arian Smith is another guy that can play just about any of the positions. I mean, they might, they'll flank Eric Gilbert with Jermaine Burton, or they'll flip it, or they'll put Burton on the inside of the trips and get him matched up on a safety because he can burn and take the top off the middle of the field. I mean, they're going to get creative with what they do. If you've noticed Todd Monken's offenses, that's what he does. He gets creative. in with his personnel, like at when he was with the Mustard Buzzers, as you so affectionately call them. He had Jalen Richard and Ito Smith. A lot of 20 and 21 personnel packages he deployed there that were outstanding. When he was at Oklahoma State, he had a lot of 10 personnel, which and some 11 personnel in which he got creative with. He's going to move guys all around because you have a track All-American in Arian Smith who ran the second fastest. One of the I want to say he placed at the NCAA championships. And then you have Jermaine Burton, who was the best all-around receiver outside of George Pickens that we had last year, most productive. Don't forget Marcus Rosemead-Jack-Saint. He suffered a brutal injury in the Florida game, snapped his tibia, but he's somebody that can make great plays on the ball in the air. And then the freshman that showed out in the spring game from that we got right out from under Ole Miss's nose was Adonai Mitchell, or A.D. Mitchell, is what they're calling him. And he's somebody that had 100 yards in the spring game. So a lot of excitement there, a lot of different pieces that you can do some stuff with. And, I guess we can't forget about the running backs. What are you going to do with James Cook? What are you going to do with Zeus? What are you going to do with Kendall Milton? Kenny McIntosh. You got 4 guys right there that are game changers at the running back position. So you got weapons all around. There's no excuse for Kirby to ground and pound, or grunt and punt as we used to call it, or there's no reason we shouldn't be scoring 35 plus points per game.
Yeah, and this offense is going to be predicated on another great season from JT Daniels. Finally got inserted in the lineup late last season. Little flashes of what this offense can be, and that kind of gives me a little hope that Kirby will take his thumb off the offense. All the signs are there, but how does JT Daniels actually sorry about that, actually look going into the season?
Take a sip of your Land Shark. I think it just depends on his knee. I mean, you saw he had trouble driving into a lot of his throws, and that kind of gave him trouble. His pocket mobility is going to be the biggest key for his success. Can he move around in the pocket? He's not somebody that's going to burn you outside the pocket, or if things break down, he's going to rip off a 20-yard run. But he is somebody that if he can just improve just moving around and buying himself an extra second or two to make a throw downfield, that's going to make all the difference in the world. And then, of course, to go along with the pocket mobility is the awareness that you have to have of what's going on around you while maintaining that eye contact downfield. So if he can improve those two things, I think he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks, not only in the conference, but in the whole country. So if he improves those two things, sky's the limit. If he doesn't, it could get rocky at times because teams are going to get creative with blitzes. Teams are going to come after him. And teams are going to do everything they can to disrupt the timing and the rhythm of what he does, because that's what he is. But he's an extremely intelligent quarterback, and that's one of his biggest strengths is he knows where to go pre-snap. He knows what's going on. He knows what he wants to do. Now it's just all about going out and executing, and I think he can. And his knee, from everything that I've heard, is 100%.
Yeah, and we'll absolutely see what goes on. A lot of people forget that the year that Matt Corral got selected to the U.S. Army All-American game, JT Daniels reclassified up to Matt Corral's class and signed with USC. So he's actually a year younger than what you should be at this age.
Yeah, he started, which should have been his senior year in high school. He started at USC. So his development he was really kind of emotionally and intellectually immature for the college game when he was at USC. So that kind of gives you a false sense of whatever, whether you say his freshman year was successful or not, that kind of gives you either way. It's kind of like I guess you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt because he was probably too young to be playing in that spot. So I think he did well for it, but also I think he was still underdeveloped. Then he got hurt. Then Keaton Slovis beat him out. And then, he transferred. So, I think it's one of those things where he's still developing, as crazy as that sounds. And I think this year you're going to see, hopefully, him put it all together. He's had a full cycle ever since he got inserted in the Mississippi State game. He's had that full cycle the rest of the season as a starter. He's had a full offseason, full spring cycle as the number one guy, no contest. And so let's see what he does with those reps.
All right, now we go down the road to Tuscaloosa and wholesale changes amongst wide receivers, amongst quarterback, amongst running backs. Nobody is saying not talented people are filling in for that role. But there is a coalescing because you have a quarterback that didn't get as much mop-up work as Mac Jones did, as Tua did, as on down the line. He wasn't ready to do it. Now, he might break out this year. He might throw for 3,500 yards and rush for 1,000. Everybody from everywhere I've talked to, he's more of a run threat throwing the football. He's more of a Jalen Hurts than a Tua Tagovailoa. It is going to be interesting to see how quickly it coalesces with a new offensive coordinator who is most famous for trading away DeAndre Hopkins for a backup running back.
Yeah, that's the most challenging piece is not any of the talent on the field. It's the person calling the shots because the guy that was successful with those aforementioned players is now the head coach of Texas in Steve Sarkisian. So we have no clue. Now, Bill O'Brien had I guess you call it decent run at it at Penn State. I guess he overachieved for what they were with Christian Hackenberg, but it still doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence that he's going to return this offense to the level it should be with all the talent that they have. But this is all unproven talent. So like Bryce Young, has he had a meaningful SEC snap? Nope. John Mechie III, he's your lead receiver. You lose two high first-round receivers. That's got to hurt. Okay, you lose a running back in Najee Harris that was a first-rounder. Probably should have been drafted higher than what he was. But running backs just aren't valued as high in the NFL. But he's going to do extremely well for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You replace him with Brian Robinson. He had 274 yards of the group that wasn't Najee Harris. Now you have Trey Sanders who's coming in. He was the number one back from the 2019 class. You also have Jace McClellan and Roydell Williams. Who knows? And then the number two back in this most recent class, Kamar Wheaton, he comes in. He's probably, honestly, he's going to factor in. I mean, there's a whole lot of inexperience there. I don't see Brian Robinson being the lead guy here. I see Trey Sanders and Kamar Wheaton as two guys that I like that are going to emerge because I just think talent, those two guys are probably the most talented guys on the roster. But, with Bryce Young, they're going to feature that run game with those two guys and him. They're probably going to do a little bit more power read, zone read options, stuff like that. A little bit more run focused, probably some shorter RPO stuff that they're going to try to do. But it's they could only take a step back. I mean, they produced at such a high level last year. Like you can't really replicate that with losing so much. Same with Florida. They're going to have to change things as well. You just can't do it. It's just not possible.
Yeah, and we'll move on to Florida real quick right now. The other question I have in the SEC as a large is, will Dan Mullen try to force feed Emory Jones into a Kyle Trask offense instead of letting him function like a Nick Fitzgerald, a Chris Relf, those guys, early Dak Prescott, and let him develop? Because that is the question. If they do that, Florida has a chance to be pretty good. If they force feed him in the Kyle Trask offense, it could be a disaster on par of what they're used to seeing down in Gainesville in about year 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think he better not try to do the Kyle Trask way. I got news for him. That ain't going to work because Emory Jones is not that type of quarterback. Now, if you listen to my solo edition of the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast last week, I went on this whole rant about JT Daniels versus Emory Jones. It's like apples and oranges. They're two different style quarterbacks, both talented in their own rights. But I think JT is going to be more successful than Emory because I think what JT does well is going to overshadow what Emory Jones does well and the impact that they both have on the game. Because Emory Jones has more impact with his legs. That can only take you so far. JT can get you through the air, which leads to way more home run opportunities than Emory Jones will have, I think, with what they do. They're going to try they're going to try to grind you out. They're going to try to option you to death and force you to make a mistake and, hit a home run every once in a while because somebody's out of position. But, with SEC speed, that's a tough thing to do. So I don't know how they're going to function. I don't know what's going to happen. They've got to have something as an option at quarterback other than him. So I don't know what that option is. Maybe stay tuned for the Florida Gator preview. But we'll get more in depth with whoever we got for Florida. I don't know, but I'll have them on my Believe in Georgia Dog show here pretty in the near future. But I just that's a question I got on my mind is, what if Emory Jones comes out of the gate and sputters? Like, what's next for them?
I just don't think that's going to happen because Dan Mullen has such a track record with quarterbacks. No matter what type of quarterback it is, he just seems to mold his offense to make it work. So I expect a lot of QB run, a lot of quarterback power, like similar to that they did with Chris Relf and Dak Prescott and Nick Fitzgerald. The running backs are going to have to get on the board early, and the outside receivers, they got a couple of 5-stars out there that's going to be running double moves on the play action with the free safeties and cornerbacks coming up to deal with the run game. I think it could be interesting to see Florida if they do that. Now, all bets are off if they do the Kyle Trask offense and just try and drop him back. Oklahoma last year will happen again. I think Emory Jones threw a pass against Ole Miss that was one of the worst I've ever seen. And if you have a question about it, look down there on the YouTube page. There's a Florida preview with David Waters where he talks about the 2021 season. He'll be available to do that. So he'll give you his thoughts on it. But until I see it actually happen, I've seen way too many coaches try to square peg and round hole a thing.
Yeah, I don't think Mullen's going to square peg round hole, but sometimes the round peg and round hole just don't fit either, and I don't know until I see it if Emory Jones is going to work because he's tried those type packages with them before. You've got to have some ability to throw. You can't just be a one-trick pony in this league. It's not going to work, because he's not. If you're Michael Vick, you probably could be a one-trick pony. If you're Lamar Jackson, yeah, you could probably be a one-trick pony and not be able to throw very well. But he's neither of those guys, and I think it's going to be, tough sledding for him. I would rank him third amongst Dak Prescott and Nick Fitzgerald at best. He's right there with Chris Relf, which I wasn't overly impressed with Chris Relf, but it was Mississippi State. It's the best they can do. Surely, I'm kind of curious with how Anthony Richardson is developing and what their plans are for him as the backup. At what point, if Emory Jones struggles, do we see the backup that comes in?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because they have Alabama in September. I think they have another game in September that's really difficult as well. I don't have their schedule right in front of me, but a 2 or 3 loss September is well within the realm of possibility.
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I'm pulling up their schedule right now. They kick off the season with a tough one, Florida Atlantic. Then they're at USF. They host Bama, Tennessee. Then they're on the road at Kentucky to kick off October. Home against Vandy. Then they're on the road at LSU. They got an open date before the cocktail party. And then they have South Carolina, Sanford, Missouri, and FSU to round out the season. So,
just reading that out, just listening to it, I hear 4 losses.
Yeah, Florida Atlantic, USF, Sanford, and Florida State, right?
No, I think Florida State has a chance to jump up and get them. I'm a big Mike Norvell guy.
They really do. He's done a hell of a job rebuilding down there. Not to go ACC after dark, but
yeah. I'm looking forward to that game, Florida State game, to basically see a progress report of both schools. This will be the first time that it's dipped at Florida, and this is going to be the first time in several years that it's spiked at FSU. I'm looking forward to seeing a recovered. I don't know if recover is the right word. Mackenzie Milton. I hope he plays extremely well. And I just have a good feeling about the Seminoles, and they are recruiting like gangbusters right now.
They are. They're doing really, really well. I'm glad to see it. They're a program that, you know, as annoyed as everybody was in the 90s with them, with all the winning that they were doing, they were kind of like the Yankees of college football. But they're a team that needs to be good for college football to be interesting. Like, the ACC needs another program, right? They need another program. UNC, love them to death, not it, right? Virginia Tech, they tried the Memphis route. They hired the wrong guy. Not it.
Miami.
Miami.
Yeah, they're going to come around, and they're not there yet.
They try to be it every year.
They're not there yet. But if they give this guy time with what they're doing, they have a schematic fit that will give teams absolute fits, and you have the basically state of Miami thing that you can recruit to.
They better get back to that. They don't do that anymore. They bet, like, what the hell is Manny Diaz doing? Because he knows better than that.
Yeah, they got a commitment from a cornerback from Holmes County, Mississippi. I guarantee, and this is nothing against Holmes County, Mississippi. That player, is Kamari Rogers, is a heck of a player. But there's two of those guys in South Florida.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right, probably right in your backyard, probably right up the road at St. Thomas Aquinas. Like, you have Ed Reed as your chief of staff.
Hmm.
You know who Ed Reed is, right?
Mm-hmm. Like, I am aware.
You're aware. He was decent at football, right? Not only at the U, but in the NFL.
Probably the greatest free safety to ever play the game.
I would not argue that. I would not argue that. There was actually not to go around the NFL now, but there was a poll, like a comparison, like Troy Polamalu versus Ed Reed. I'm like, dude, Ed Reed, 100%. It's not a question. They actually play two different positions. You know, Polamalu is more of a box safety, strong safety, and Ed Reed is
he's a true free safety.
He's
and the closest to Ed Reed, and I don't care what says, the untimely death of him is the only reason these two aren't mentioned back to back in the free safety world. But Sean Taylor also fit that bill.
Yes, he did. He was a guy that played sideline to sideline, and he was more physical than Ed Reed. He was more physical than Ed Reed. He'd come up and absolutely pop you. And when those two were briefly playing together in the same region of the country, that's like you could watch a Redskin game, or actually now Washington football team, but you could watch a Redskin game and then turn around, drive 90 minutes and watch a Raven game and see two of the greatest free safeties to play the game. Two of the most talented, I should say.
It's not 90 minutes. It's closer to 40.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's right down the road.
Yeah, it is.
I was stationed right in between Baltimore and D.C. when I was in the military.
Annapolis?
No, Fort Meade, which is Laurel.
Okay. Yeah. I never made the trip from Baltimore to D.C. I've been to both cities. A friend of mine played baseball at GW, so I went and visited him in D.C. And we had those rivals camps in Baltimore, which was a lot of fun. Actually, the Inner Harbor was a lot of fun.
Fells Point is legit.
Yes. And it was the first time I'd ever had crabs with the Old Bay seasoning, like full on, like you get a mallet and you smash the crab up. I've never done that before.
Well, crab cakes in football, that's what Maryland does.
That's definitely what Maryland does. So let's get back to the Southeastern Conference, right? That was our NFL minute. Cheers. Cheers to the Boston Lager. Yeah. Boston College is not being the team in the ACC.
Exactly. Sam Adams, Summer L for Corey.
That's right. So, yeah, I mean, I see Alabama, definite loss. I don't care. These two teams are kind of on similar planes as far as, like, replacing all this production, but Alabama's got more bullets in the gun. Kentucky, that's a really tough road game.
The only thing keeping me from calling a Kentucky upset right now is the fact that Kentucky changed their offensive system, and I haven't seen it.
That's true.
That's the only thing keeping me from calling that right now, because defensively, that is going to be a nails unit, and Kentucky and Florida going through a new transition, and they look a little different. It's going to be tough.
But it's tough for Florida to win if they don't score. Mm-hmm. And Kentucky is nasty against the run. Tennessee, that's going to be a you know what show. LSU at LSU. I don't care what you say. That's a very tough place to play.
We'll talk about them as surprise teams.
Yeah, that'll probably be a night game. If Max Johnson is quarterback, that's an L. Georgia, that's an L this year. That game could go either way. It usually does, but that's an L this year. At South Carolina, if they're reeling, that could be an L, but probably not. No. And then definitely Missouri. That's not an easy game. November game in
that's a swing game. That's a swing game. That's the difference between a 7-5 and an 8-4 season. Between everything, all the alarm bells going off on the fan base, and okay, we made it to a decent bowl game and continue. Because 7-5 is not going to play well at Florida. It's not.
Can you imagine you lose back-to-back at Missouri and then Florida and then home against Florida State?
Yeah,
imagine you lose those two.
Well, I think, what is Georgia, the fourth from the end game of the season? There's a chance of going 1-3 to close out the season. That's a problem.
It'd be 2-3.
2-3.
Yeah, it'd be 2-3 because they play South Carolina, Stanford between those two.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, to go 2-3 to close the season after losing 2 straight with an open date in between, like you lose to LSU, you got another week to commiserate in that loss, and then you go up against Georgia, which, you know, there's no telling what Georgia could be like. If Georgia's surging by the time they get to that game, that's usually an L for Florida. So, and usually Georgia's, if they're playing well, they're red hot by the time they get to Jacksonville, and then, you know, there's no telling with Missouri. Missouri could be in a total tailspin, or they could be, you know, right there fighting tooth and nail for that second spot in the SEC East. Connor Bazelak is a quarterback when we get to surprise teams that you have right down there. Missouri's a team that's I think is going to surprise me in a good way, because Connor Bazelak, I really, really like him as a quarterback. And I think he's going to do some big things for Missouri. I think they've done a good job recruiting with Drinkwitz. You know, as far as what they were, where they are, kind of how things changed over, and just kind of who they are. Like it's Missouri. They're really kind of a Big 12 team disguised as an SEC team. So
shocking.
Yeah, I mean, and the area they have to recruit is not the greatest. So for him to do what they did, it's actually pretty good. So I think they're a team, and they're more on player development anyway. So I think they're a team that's gonna surprise people. So.
All right, well, let's get into the surprise teams. I'm going to start off with an obvious one with everything that I cover, but Ole Miss is destined to be the surprise team in the SEC this year. The over-under is going to be set at somewhere around 8 or 9 games. The offense returns just about everybody but Elijah Moore, and defensively you have 4 or 5 new starters lined up, including a top 100 recruit, an honorable mention All Big Ten player, Otis Reese, who you know well, playing full-time, and Jacob Springer, who was an all-conference guy in the American Conference. Those are guys that are going to go into the Ole Miss defense, and I expect them to make a lot of plays. On
a unit that can only get better. Like, they can't get any worse. They were horrendous last year. And I just hope to see, like, if they could just not give up 50 burgers every other week, they'll win. Yeah, because the offense is going to be able to score. I mean, their offense is loaded, and they got a lot. The experience factor is what's key, because you got all those guys coming back in the same system. You can start building on things, right? You can start having things off of things, and you can start getting
my triple option can show up. Because the timing is there. You
can start getting funky, right? And I like that. You know, when we were breaking down his offense, I think you're going to be able to get to year 3 FAU in year 2 at Ole Miss.
Yep.
with the experience they have coming back, and I'm excited to watch this team. I wouldn't consider myself an Ole Miss fan, but I do appreciate watching some good football, and I do love me some Lane Kiffin because he's the greatest troll in college football, and I'm here for that. But I'm excited. I think this offense is going to put up points. The most surprising thing about Ole Miss is going to be their defense. Their offense is not going to. It's not a surprise. I'm expecting them to score and score and score a lot. I'm expecting Matt Corral to be a good quarterback. I'm not expecting them as a team. They're going to be a surprise as a team because the West is the West, and it's you have Bama, A&M. You still have to contend with Auburn. You still have to contend with LSU, even though they're down. Even though Auburn and LSU were down, they're still there. There's still programs that know how to win, so you still got to contend with that. So they're going to be extremely competitive, and I'm kind of looking at what was it 03 that Ole Miss was kind of in this position where they had a lot of experience coming back offensively. They weren't very good defensively, but then they were one win away from going to Atlanta.
Yeah, it was 03. That was Eli's senior year.
I kind of see that kind of same that same scenario wouldn't shock me.
Yeah,
Like I think they're that good.
yeah, and honestly, I hate to anybody that's listening that is not an Ole Miss fan, you're going to think I'm pandering, but this is a huge season for Ole Miss for Arch Manning and the recruitment of Arch Manning. Ole Miss probably needs 8 or 9 wins. If you do that, you get him on campus. All of a sudden, you have Arch Manning. You have coattails. There's rumors of 5-star running backs and wide receivers that want to follow him to college. And in the name of name, image, and likeness, is there any place that you can go with the last name Manning other than Oxford, Mississippi? Because he's going to make millions of dollars while he's in school.
Knoxville. You can go to Knoxville with that name.
Potentially.
You got your uncle Peyton over there. You could you can go to Vanderbilt.
Speaking of
They'd
Vanderbilt,
love to have you there.
speaking of Vanderbilt, there's a sneaky chance. Now, I'm not calling them a surprise team, but they could win 5 next year.
They could. Mm-hmm. They're going to be. What's going to surprise me about Vanderbilt is not in the win-loss column because it's going to be ugly in the win-loss column. So if you're a Vandy fan and you're like living and dying on the win-loss column, just stop. Like just pump the brakes because you ain't going to win a whole lot of games. You can win 5. There's a chance you can win 5. Let me pull up their schedule. But what's their identity going to be? They haven't had one of those. They didn't have one of those under Derek Mason. Like you didn't know what they were, especially offensively. It was a mess. Like they had Andy Ludwig, which he doesn't know what he is, and that was a blessing in disguise when he left. And then they bungled the hire again, and they still didn't know what they were. Like they didn't have a system. They just had like a bunch of plays on a sheet of paper that they tried to run. They didn't have an identity. When they were under James Franklin, they had an identity. Age of offensive linemen when James Franklin was there.
The amazing thing with James Franklin is the team embraced the role of villain. So Vanderbilt being lovable losers for years and years and years, back-to-back years.
Yeah, it was awesome. And if you want, like, there's some really good stories. Offensive lineman Ryan Seymour, he played in the NFL for 10 seasons and played under James Franklin. Lots of great stories about Caldwell into James Franklin. Like he told stories about that. It's a great show to listen to. Those two do a great job. Is the guy that's going to do it for him. They need to build around him what he does best, and let's go, and be the 11 o'clock SEC Plus game every week because we're so bad. Like let's be
let's be an SEC. The first step is be an SEC, Mississippi State, like Ole Miss, like South Carolina, like need to be in the game.
Yeah, and their best case scenario is 6-6, right? Like you could East Tennessee, that's a win. You're going at Colorado State, that better be a win. You host Stanford,
and they can work it. You might be able to outscore them.
Yep. Then they host Georgia, that's an L. They host you, and you're looking at 3-2 heading into Florida, right? You're looking at 3-2 with swamp and kind of give Florida all that they want. At South Carolina, that's going to be kind of you're looking at like I'm looking at South Carolina right now. That's who we got to. That's our bar. Like chance, right? Will Rogers, Ken Seals. That's going to be a fun quarterback matchup. You hope
because of a completely opposite reason than you think. It gets eerie in that place. It is quiet and it's hard. I've learned this from Ole Miss going up to Vanderbilt, up to Nashville every other year.
Yep. 2016, they hosted them. Sleptwalk ended up losing Kirby's first year. So Missouri, they're probably going to be a weird environment. Probably going to be an 11 a.m. local kick. It's going to be one of those probably a gloomy. They can't lose the next game because it's open. Then you host Kentucky, which Kentucky's to play. It's not a hostile environment, but it's the polar opposite.
It's just weird. Possibility of pulling that game out. That could be Clark Lee's signature win.
That's fans. Like you can have a high school team out there. They expect you to beat Vandy, right?
Yeah,
they just
continue. Yeah,
I mean that's an easy thing to do because it's difficult. They don't.
But they did.
Well.
You wanted to real quick. We only got about 15 minutes, but time's flying. I'm sure you wanted to mention Missouri as one of your surprise teams.
I did.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned with Connor Basilick as being the guy that's going to be that guy that's going to drive this whole thing, right? I think it's going to be one of those things. You look at him, and it's going to be they're going to go as he goes, right? They've got a fan base that's really excited about what Drinkowitz is doing. He had a tough go at it, a 10-game SEC only schedule. They were ranked towards the tail end of the year, which means they got better and better and better. So I'm excited for what this team can bring to the table. I had them early on, like in my post-spring analysis, I had them finishing second in the East. The popular pick for second in the East is Kentucky. I called Michigan. Yeah, Michigan's going to finish second in the SEC East. Missouri finishing second in the SEC East. They have Tyler Batty as a running back. They lose that dude. I drawn a blank on his name. Larry Roundtree. They lose him. But Tyler Batty,
Jalen Knox transferred away.
Yeah, Jalen Knox transferred away. That's a big hit. But they got Tyler Batty, they got Kiki Chisholm, they got guard Case Cook Senior back, and then they got their center Michael Maietti back. I can't names. I gotta get good with these names here. So they got some talent coming back on the offense side of the ball. Those are some five key players there on defense. Trajan Jeffcoat, defensive end. Something that Missouri's always been great at is getting after the passer, which they've had really good guys to be able to do that. They're going to do that again this year. Devin Nicholson, Kobe Whiteside, Blaze Aldridge, all guys on the defensive front. You got two linemen, two linebackers that are going to be standout players, and then of course Martez Manuel on the back end at safety position is another key element to that defense. So I'm curious to know what they're going to do with all these guys. They got, like I said, they got a lot of people coming back. Offense is going to be expected to score in year two. They were dead even 5-5 on their 10-game SEC schedule, but they it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch them, I think.
All right, and before I go give my next surprise team, Connor Basilick reminds me of a freshman year Matt Corral. That is the ceiling that I think he can get to. Also, my next surprise team also is the LSU. I think they are going to underachieve what people think. They were 5-5 for a reason last year. They have a little bit of talent, but nowhere near where they need to be. And there's people making a lot of assumptions in regard to their wide receivers and their quarterback position. And for some reason, both corners. I don't understand that. But I do think that there's too many unknowns to put LSU at that level, and they will underachieve this year. I've seen this movie before.
What are your thoughts on A&M?
On A&M, I really like A&M. I want to see what the quarterback looks like. They're a good quarterback away from competing with Alabama. They have that kind of talent at the other 23 positions or 22 positions, 21 positions on the field. But you need a quarterback. I like their run game. I love Isaiah Spiller. Their hog mollies. I think their offense, believe it or not, is a little bit too stuck in the 2010 range, and that things have evolved past that. The game is real close to leaving Jimbo behind, but he's keeping up a little bit by recruiting.
Yeah, he's kind of that talent gap. He's kind of keeping that. He's gonna have to evolve, adapt or die, and that's one thing that's got me concerned. Is the fact that I don't really have a ton of confidence in the quarterback position. Are they going to be able to throw the ball like they were able to last year with Kellen Mond? Are they going to be able to do that? I mean, you had Kellen Mond for 8 years. Can you capitalize on whoever's going to step in and play the quarterback position? I don't know. I don't know if Jimbo's offense can equip that. He better figure it out, or they could be, their team to me that they're going to surprise me. They could surprise me in one of two ways. Like they could surprise me and win the West, or they could surprise me and go freaking 7-5. Like I could see like if they're going to try to lean on Isaiah Spiller and just try to ground and pound. I just don't think that's going to work.
Yeah,
it's not going to work. Like they need to have other answers, and I'm not sure that they do. They had a 4-star that transferred out at the receiver spot. As soon like a month and a half after he signed, he said, "Nah, I'm good. Peace out." I guess he saw some of the weirdos at Texas A&M, but Anaya Smith is their best receiver. They got to figure a way to get him the ball. But like I said, it's going to come down to that quarterback position. They're always going to be great on defense.
They need to quit fooling with him in the backfield.
Yeah.
Get him out wide, get him on an island, and get him the ball quickly. Just do not mess in the backfield. Don't take Isaiah Spiller off the field.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. But here's their schedule. They're actually at Colorado. They're playing a game in Denver, neutral site game. That's going to be a fun game to watch because I really like what Colorado's doing. They're a team – we're going to go coast to coast here, but they're a team that's going to surprise me in the Pac-12. We've talked 2 Pac-12 teams so far. They play Arkansas. That's going to be a tough game early. Mississippi State is a game that
is that Arkansas game in Dallas.
Yeah, it is.
So they play 2 neutral site games.
Yep,
that is weird.
Yeah, that Arkansas game that's a new tradition. Like they're trying to start like the Texas OU game. They're trying to start that or something. I don't know what they're doing with that, but that's a tough game early because Arkansas is going to be a physical ball club. They're going to stop the run, right? Mississippi State's going to be tough against the run. You know what they do offensively. Will Rogers, it could be a blowout too, but that could also, right before the Alabama game, that could be a disaster. Alabama, they've put a smackdown on you. Who knows? Then you're at Missouri. That's not necessarily an easy game.
That's not ideal.
Home against South Carolina. That's good.
That's okay.
You get Auburn at home. That's good. Auburn could be unraveled at that point. You're at Ole Miss. I don't like that for them. No. Prairie View.
They'll be all right with Prairie View.
That could be good. Then they're at LSU, which at the point that they play LSU could either be red hot, and that could be like that's going to determine if they play December 4th in Atlanta, or LSU could be completely unraveled. They're getting ready to fire Coach O at when the clock hit triple zeros, and that could be a blowout city there. Who knows? But that's one of those games where, I mean, in your mind, that's probably going to be blowout city. In my mind, that could go either way. But it's not an easy schedule. They're like the way it's set up. I don't like their schedule. It concerns me.
That's a weird travel to Denver. Going to
Yeah,
Dallas for the Arkansas game. Is that a home game for A&M? Is it, or is this Arkansas's home game?
I think it's listed as a home game.
So it's listed as a home game. That means they don't even get credit for playing at Kyle Field. They're on the road basically for a neutral site game. It's like the cocktail party. Is one of those weird games.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Arkansas, this is going to be the year that they start to get scary.
Yeah, they're gonna.
Watch KJ Jefferson in this Kendall Briles attack. I'm telling you, it's going to get scary for teams.
As long as they keep Kendall Briles, they're going to be really good. And if I'm Kendall Briles, I don't know if I try to be a head coach. I might just say, you know what, I'm cool with Sam Pittman. I'm cool here in the SEC. I'm making good money. I'm doing my thing. You know, my last name, and the title of head coach is not really two things that go well together right now in people's minds. So, you know, do your thing.
Yeah.
So I don't want to play Arkansas early. Georgia plays Arkansas early. We're going to have Kyle Sutherland on the Georgia Dogs podcast here in the near future too, to do the Arkansas preview. But you know, I'm not liking that game. That's going to be one of those cold tub type games where like you're in the cold tub for 2 days.
Yeah, it's one of those games, and if Georgia is truly going to open up the offense, as we saw last year, the potential is there for Arkansas to make plays just simply by their drop eight that they do. It's going to be on the running game, and you have to stick with the running game in that situation to get them.
Against a team like Arkansas, you have to be patient, and you have to take what they give you, and you have to be content taking short and intermediate throws and just letting your guys make plays in space, right? And Georgia has guys that can do that. And then occasionally you kind of tighten them up a little bit, and then you can double move them and take a shot with track star Arian Smith. But it's just, Georgia's in a different place now at the quarterback position than they were when they played Arkansas last year. So, hopefully it'll go. Well, I say hopefully as a Georgia fan, hopefully it'll go better. But you never know. They're physical. They're going to stop the run. I can guarantee you that. Georgia ain't going to have much success running the ball against Arkansas. They're going to have to do it through the air, which is the way they beat them last year. And they capitalized on 2 really costly Felipe Franks turnovers. That's how they won that game last year against Arkansas. They're going to have to do something similar. Like defense is going to have to step up, make a huge play somewhere in the second half to kickstart something. But it's going to be a tight game. Georgia fans are going to be scratching their head going, man, it's Arkansas. They're going to be physical. And to me, that's not a surprise because that's their identity. They're a punch you in the mouth, physical team that's finding their way offensively. They have an identity offensively. They're just trying to find their way within that.
Yeah. Whenever I did the podcast today, I described the defenses being played in today's football as an accordion. And they want you to play, they want that accordion to stay closed. That's, 12 yards, 13 yards, and do that. But whenever that free safety goes back, there's space that emerges. There's space that emerges either in front of the linebackers or behind the linebackers. Every defense is like that, and they want to play close to the line of scrimmage. That's the reason it's important to attack at all levels of a defense. And Arkansas leaves that gap behind the defensive line and the linebackers as opposed to behind the linebackers and in front of the free safety.
Yeah, and that's what teams are trying to attack that space now between the secondary and the second level. And that's where these RPOs are attacking, and that's they're trying to make linebackers think. That's what offenses are trying to do at this moment. They're trying to make guys think. They're trying to make guys play slow. They're trying to put guys in conflict, especially linebackers. And linebackers, there's different movements and things now that defensive coordinators are starting to catch up with these RPO stuff, which is why you're seeing, the RPOs evolved from first level RPOs where you were reading defensive linemen and throwing quick screens. Now it's second level. Let's throw some slants behind some linebackers that fill really hard on hard run action. Now you're starting to see college teams go look at play side safeties at the third level and read those guys and put those guys in conflict, right? because you're taking advantage of, you get some of these run filling safeties that come down and leave space behind them, or you're getting guys that miscommunicate that come down and that wheel route goes right by them, or that post comes right behind them. And you're getting guys like that. You're getting guys that, or you're getting some of these where you take a few shots, you loosen up the safeties. Now you're creating that gap on the second level of the defense, that now you're attacking that intermediate range with digs and posts and crosses and stuff like that. And you start playing games with those guys, and then they start thinking, they start playing slow, and then they start going up and down, up and down, up and down. And then once they come back up, then you take your shot, and it's ball game. And go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, well, I was just going to explain. Like Lane Kiffin, let's look at Lane Kiffin's offense between the hashes. They are 60% run, 60% inside and outside zone. Nothing really fancy, a couple of jet sweeps here and there. But that is to get the linebackers to come forward and create the space behind them. You have tight ends and slot receivers. Elijah Moore and Kenny Yeboah made a living last year in that space between the linebacker and the defensive backs. Well, that safety is going to come up to try and take that away, and that's going to open up the double move, and you're going to see receivers like Elijah Moore against South Carolina open by 25 yards because everybody crashed so hard. And it's just 3 levels of defense. There's options on every play, and defensive backs and linebackers just can't be right.
Yeah, you're finding a way to put multiple players on an island. It's like Lane Kiffin is trying to stuff everybody in the box so that he can eventually put those cornerbacks one-on-one with his guys. And he's going to, and he ain't scared. He's going to take shots with his guys. Like like win, lose, or draw, it don't matter. Like that ball goes in the air, his hands are up, right? He's going to take shots on the outside. That's what he does. He's going to set that up because he's going to attack the edge. He's going to get those. He's going to get those, whatever you call them, nickel corners, safeties, dogs, whatever you want to call them. They're going to attack the edge. And you're going to draw those guys in, you're going to draw those guys down, which means your corners are going to sink, and now they're susceptible to double moves because you bring those edge guys down, you drop a safety in the middle of the field, you run a double move up the sideline, that safety can't help you.
And the one thing that Lane Kiffin is just so good at, like he might be the best coach in the country at this, and that is out of the back. The wide receiver's open by 20 yards, and you wonder how he got there. But he got there by those 3 other plays and people reacting to that. Yeah,
longer than this, but it really kind of came to the forefront in my mind when I watched Cam Newton do it. But the pass, you shuffle, read the end. You got a guard pulling around. You put that. Defenses are never right against that.
Yeah, if you got the right people running it, is pretty much unstoppable.
Like if you got a running back that can trust that he's going to hold that mesh and trust that if he gives it to you, you can put the ball in the gut of the running back to the last possible second, sweep, and then they just cut against the grain, go right down the middle of the defense and score.
Yeah, you basically have teams to watch in the SEC. I'm going to take the Georgia Bulldogs. You 17-3.
Yeah, I'm going to speak it into existence. Yeah, obviously Georgia's the team to watch in the SEC, and actually Ole Miss and Auburn for that team that's going to be, Alabama's my favorite over there in the West. A&M is kind of the team that's probably going to disappoint me there.
Yeah, if Ole Miss has a defense that is ranked nationally between 60 and 80, one of them.
And right now, as an Ole Miss fan, that's all you can expect in year 2 of Lane Kiffin. I didn't see what they have with Matt Corral and what they can put together to try to.
J.J. Henry, slot receiver out of Texas. Braylon Brown, wide receiver out of Florida.
Spring during the height of COVID. We didn't know if we were gonna have a 2020 season at the time. And of course, Matt Corral is. I listened to your pop. Spencer Rattler was, and they're
he was number 1 on their list. Yeah, the same quarterback.
The
stylistically and all that stuff. If you watch one, they could change over and they'd look identical. At all the other conferences.
Yeah, what do you think about Wisconsin? What are they going to do?
I don't know about Wisconsin, but Brett Bielema at Illinois.
Speaking
Greg Schiano at Rutgers.
Yeah, they're pesky, man. They're the Vanderbilt of the Big Ten.
When the bell tolls for Jim Harbaugh at Michigan.
Yeah.
Ryan, let's see, I forget his name.
Why?
That's I have no idea. He's the only one. I mean, he has more playoff wins than Lincoln Riley, and
Their roster's not that great, and they win every year. I get that. Like Lincoln Riley is a great coach. I like Lincoln Riley. I think a lot of him, but I don't know.
they'd be system quarterbacks, not great players.
That's true, but they have a place to go now in the NFL. That's the Arizona Cardinals.
Yes.
You could. They run the old Hank.
Yeah. So for Corey Burton, I'm Stephen Willis. We went over an hour today. We're going to put the inaugural issue of SEC After Dark. Like I said, for Corey Burton, I'm Stephen Willis, and of course,